Resourceful Designer, episode 220. Don't be a penguin.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He copied a Bob Ross painting for his fine arts class in college. Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this week's episode, I'm going to talk about why you need to stand out if you want to grow your business. I'm also going to share a resource of the week that will help you speed up your and your clients' websites. Now, what have I been up to this past week? Well, I've been working away on a couple of websites. Both of them are not quite close to being done. I'd say I'm about the midway point. 2 different clients, but it's kind of nice. They gave me all the content way in advance, so I don't have to wait for anything, which is really nice. So I'm plugging away a little bit on each, spending one day on one, the next day on the other, try to get them both close to the finish line at the same time. I also ended up fixing an issue with a client's website, or not really an issue with the site, but I found out through my backup software that this one client's site was taking up a lot of memory for the backups. The backup files were huge. So I went and had a look, and it turns out that this is an e-commerce site, and my client was uploading all the images for their many products. They had thousands of products, and they had uploaded all of them as PNG files instead of JPEG files. And some of the files were in the megabyte range as opposed to kilobytes, and even the ones, some of them were 200-300 kilobytes where they could have easily been 30 or 40 kilobytes as a JPEG. So I contacted the client and informed them that they shouldn't be doing that. I had told them at the start when I built the website that they should be using JPEGs, but they told me they liked the way the PNGs looked better, even though no transparent background or anything. They just liked the way it looked. It looked crisper is the way they worded it. Well, once I explained what was happening with the website and how slow and how their scores overall, whenever you run it through any site optimizer or analyzer, the scores were horrible because of the load time and everything. Once I explained all that, they agreed to start using JPEGs instead of PNGs from now on. And at first they were worried that they would have to re-upload thousands of images. But luckily, Brian in the Resourceful Designer community reminded me that I have a certain plugin that could help with this, and sure enough it did. I installed the plugin on the website, and it automatically changed all the PNG files to JPEG files for me, optimized it. We saved, I think it was 87% reduction in space or in memory saved from converting from PNG to JPEG. Now I'll share that plugin in just a moment, but I just want to share that little issue with you and just to keep on top of things that your clients are doing. Because I told this client at the beginning they should be saving JPEGs, but on their own, they decided that PNG files looked better without thinking of the consequences. So I'm glad that one was taken care of. And of course, I keep doing podcast artwork. I had a couple of them this week come in from an agency I work with. It's a podcast agency, and I'm their go-to designer whenever they sign on a new client that needs artwork. So on top of my regular business of podcast branding where I do this, I also offer this service to this particular agency, and they sent me 3 artwork this week. So that was kind of nice to get in. So I've been working on those as well as a few of my own. So that's a little bit of what I've been up to this past week. Now, of course, some of my time was devoted to the Resourceful Designer community. We're continuing our weekly video meetings, which are going really well, getting some good turnout. A lot of great talks, interactions going on there, as well as within the community itself. We created a couple of more channels. Some of the members said they'd like to see a channel for deals. Whenever companies come out with special deals or offerings, maybe a plugin goes on sale, a place where we can put that sort of information. So I created that channel, as well as another one just to talk about tools. We have a whole bunch of different channels, but we didn't have one to talk about tools or software and stuff that we use if we want to discuss certain things. So I love the way the community is divided up into all sorts of different channels for different topics, some of them for critique, some of them talking about dealing with clients, some of them just if we want to give ourselves a pat on the back. So we have all sorts of different channels to discuss different topics, and we had some great conversations going this week. We did a lot of talking on WordPress plugins or different ways to do stuff. There's a couple of members that were having some issues trying to get something done with websites, and all of us chimed in with some useful advice, and a lot of solutions were discovered. So it's a way for all of us to grow as designers, learn things, bounce ideas off of, and most importantly, just having friends that you get to know, that you get to converse with, and you get to confide in with certain things. So if you're interested in a community that sounds just like that, then why don't you head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/community and join today. And now, this week's Resource of the Week. Now, I mentioned how I was able to convert thousands of PNG files into JPEG files for my client on their website, and I did that with the help of a WordPress plugin called ShortPixel. Now, ShortPixel improves website performance by reducing image sizes, resulting in smaller images that are no different in quality from the original, and that's taken directly from their sites. And this result means that you get faster loading of web pages, which translates into a better user experience, which also translates into higher search engine rankings. So speed factor is a major component when it comes to Google and Bing and any other search engine on how they're going to rank websites. And ShortPixel is a great way to optimize those photos. Now you can use ShortPixel to compress images upon upload. You can set up the plugin on a website, and every time you upload an image, it'll automatically optimize it for you. Or if you have a bunch, you can batch process it. That's what I did. I actually have ShortPixel installed on the Resourceful Designer website permanently, but I temporarily installed it on this client's website just so I could optimize all their photos on the site. And then once it was done, I took it off, and they told me they were going to take care of optimizing their photos beforehand, but it was just so easy to do. So you can set it up beforehand and optimize photos as you upload, or you can batch process existing images that are already on the site. Now, ShortPixel does offer one-time plans for as low as $9.99 for 10,000 images to be processed. So it's kind of like you're buying credits, and every credit goes towards one image being processed. Or you can start a monthly plan that starts at $4.99 a month for 5,000 images per month. And that's great to use across many websites for your clients and all sorts of stuff. Now, they even have a free plan that you can check out. If you only need to optimize up to 100 images per month, you can use it for that. So I've had ShortPixel for, well over a year now. I've had it installed on Resourceful Designer, and it really helps optimize the site, speed things up, and just makes everything so much cleaner. So if you're building your own website, or if you're working on websites for clients and you want a way to optimize your photos on the fly or to batch optimize them, you should really check out this resource. Now, I do have an affiliate with them, so if you are interested, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/shortpixel. And now, don't be a penguin. I was listening to a podcast recently, and the guest said something about standing out to get noticed. To which the host replied, "Well, that's for sure. You don't want to be a penguin." Now, if you heard me last week on the episode, I mentioned at the beginning how sometimes it can be the most mundane things that I either see or hear or read that sparks an idea for a podcast topic. Well, that line did it for me. You don't want to be a penguin. Everything else on that podcast that I was listening to, everything that was said before the host uttered those words, to everything right till the end of the interview, was really quite boring. It wasn't a good interview at all. But hearing that phrase, "you don't have to be a penguin," was all I needed for that idea spark. And what an important idea it is for the world we're living in right now. At the time that I'm recording this, a good part of the world, including here in North America, we're slowly returning to some semblance of normal life after the COVID-19 lockdown. Now, what the world looks like in the weeks, months, or years to come is a topic for a completely different podcast. But even if you're listening to this episode sometime in the future, the premise of what I'm going to say here still applies to you. But it is so important right now because we're all trying to get our businesses back on track, to grow and to expand and to get beyond this whole COVID thing. And that's why I'm telling you, don't be a penguin. Okay, you're probably wondering, well, what do you mean by that, Mark? Well, let me ask you, have you ever seen a large group of penguins? And by the way, here's a little bit of trivia for you to share at your next get-together whenever you can be around other people. A group of penguins is actually called a rookery. So, have you ever seen a rookery of penguins? Maybe it was at the zoo, or if you're lucky, actually out in the wild, or even if you saw them on TV. How do you differentiate one individual bird from the rest? I have no idea, and I suspect, unless you have an affinity for penguins, neither do you. Unless one of the birds has some form of distinguishing feature, they all pretty well look the same. So if I was to ask you to pick out one single penguin from the entire bunch, would it really matter which one you picked? Probably not, because as far as you and I are concerned, they all look the same. In fact, if I asked you to pick out a single penguin, what you would probably do was look at the entire group of penguins, the entire rookery, and search for one that had something distinguishing about it, some feature that made it stand out. And you would pick that one because it would make your selection easier. And that's because it's much easier to choose something that stands out than something that blends in. Now, I want you to think of your design business in those terms. Or, more to the point, I want you to think about a client looking for a designer, somebody to hire for a project they have. To a client who is unfamiliar with the design space and hiring designers, you and I, we're all penguins. As far as the client's concerned, we're all the same. So how do you expect the client to choose you out of all the other design business penguins that are out there? You need to be different. You need that distinguishing feature that will help them choose you over everyone else. Now, a couple of episodes ago, in episode 218, I had Cole Gray on the podcast. Well, Cole's business is growing because, well, he stands out. Yes, we talked about his YouTube channel, but even before that, Cole's business was growing. It was standing out. And I'm not talking about his Scottish accent. Sure, that's a distinguishing feature as far as you and I and most of the world is concerned, but it doesn't help Cole in his home country of Scotland because I'm pretty sure that most of the other native designers in his country, those he's competing with on a local level, pretty sure they all speak pretty much the same way he does. So his accent isn't really a distinguishing feature there. No, Cole stands out because of the personal brand that he spent years developing. And that goes for his website, his marketing material, but just as much, it includes his personality and his look. Now, I know you were listening to a podcast last time, so you couldn't really see him. But if you don't know Cole, let me kind of describe him a little bit. First of all, he's always wearing black. And I mean always. I looked through his YouTube channel, and of the hundreds of videos he has, I think I only saw one where he was wearing a white t-shirt. In every other video, he was dressed in black. And I've been on numerous video chats with Cole, and he's always wearing black. Now, Cole also has a very long beard, a beard that grows down below his chest level. And not only that, but he often ties his beard, I should say, with hair elastics, or, well, I call them hair elastics. I don't know if they're called beard elastics, but he has these elastics. So he'll have his long beard tied with multiple elastics. And that creates a certain look. On top of that, as I mentioned on that episode, Cole is always wearing a ball cap. And not just any random ball cap. It's either a black ball cap or a red ball cap. And you can go back photos over the years and years, and he is consistent with that. So visually, Cole stands out. If some company, say in Scotland, asked multiple Scottish designers to come in and pitch to them, trust me, they'll remember Cole after the meeting. In fact, even if they don't hire him, I'm sure that they'd still remember him months or even years down the road. And that's because Cole is not a penguin. He stands out. But let's forget about looks here and let's talk about niching. Do you remember Craig Burton, who I had on the show back in episode 174? Craig's design business is called School Branding Matters. Is he a penguin among other designers? I think not. One look at Craig's website or just hearing the name School Branding Matters, and you know right away how Craig's design business is different. Think of some school principal or a school director somewhere that's looking to rebrand their institution. If they're presented with 3 or 4 different designers to choose from, which one do you think they'll stand out the most to them as the best choice to choose? The 3 designers who have practically the exact same message on their website, just worded in different ways? Or the one designer whose message says he helps schools craft compelling visual brands? Do you get my point? The penguin that stands out is the one that gets picked. But even within a niche, you don't want to be a penguin. You still have to stand out. Take my podcast branding business, for example. I know of several other businesses and people offering podcast cover art as a service. I also know that out of all of them, I'm one of the most expensive options. Some of the others offer their services at a fraction of the cost of what I charge, and yet I'm getting new orders every single week. Why is that? It's because I stand out. Every client who purchases from me, I ask them why they chose podcast branding to design the cover art for their podcast. And most of them tell me it's because all the other options they looked at seemed the same and they couldn't tell which one was better than the other. However, when they saw me, I was different. I looked the most professional, and even though I cost more than all the other ones, they tell me that I look the most trustworthy and I look like I was the one that can help them out the most. Not only that, but I'm the only podcast cover artwork service out there, as far as I know, who insists on meeting and talking with each client before I design anything for them. The first step after they purchase my service is to set up a video chat for me to talk to them. I want to get to know the people that I'm going to be designing for. And I've had several clients tell me that that was the clincher. They felt that that personal touch meant I would take better care of them than any of the other services that just wanted them to submit their information via a web form that was so impersonal. So you see, it doesn't matter who's the better designer. It doesn't matter who's the fastest designer. And it doesn't matter who's the most affordable designer. What matters is which designer stands out from the others. Because the one that stands out is the one that will get chosen the most often. So what can you do to stand out? How can you get your business to stand out from your local and all other competition out there? Well, you could try embracing some unique look like Cole has, but that strategy may be going a little bit too far for you, or it could take years to develop it. Or you could try narrowing down your business and focusing on a specific niche, like Craig or like I have. Doing that, niching down, automatically sets you apart from other general all-purpose designers. Now, if you want to know more about niching, go back and listen to episodes 54 and 93 of the podcast, where those 2 were dedicated to niching down with your business. But what if you don't want to go to those lengths? What if you don't want to develop a unique look for yourself or to niche down your business? In those cases, what you need to do is figure out what makes you unique and embrace it and emphasize it for everyone to see. Several years ago, I was in an online group. It was a web design group. It was actually an email list. And in that group was another Scottish web designer. I'll have to ask Cole if he knows him. Anyways, this designer just exuded his personality on his website. For example, when describing his process to visitors, he wrote something like this. I'm paraphrasing here because I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like this. Once I know the scope of your project, I'll present you with a proposal. I can do this over video, but I'd much prefer do it in person. We can meet at my office or yours, but whoever's office we choose is responsible for supplying the cookies. And his site was full of small things like that just gave you a glimpse into his personality. I also remember the main headline when you loaded his homepage on his website, the very first thing you saw was this: "Hi, I'm a Scottish web designer, and I'm very good at it. Web design, that is. I'm only so-so at being Scottish." Right there, upon landing on his site, you knew that he was different. He was not like all the other designers out there that just said, "Hi, I offer web design services." Now, yes, some people might be turned off by this sort of presentation, but chances are those people were not the clients that he would have wanted anyway. And those who did like it saw him as different than all the other designers they had been checking out, and they liked what they saw, and they hired him. And you know what? He once told me that almost every project that he goes to somebody's office to pitch, they always have cookies on the table for him, and most of them joke about it because they saw it on his website. So those sort of things work, making him stand out or anything you do to make yourself stand out. So ask yourself, what am I doing to make my design business stand out from my competition? What can I change or what can I do better in order to improve my chances of being the chosen one? What can I do so that I'm not just another penguin in the rookery? There's something for you to ponder while you're waiting until the next podcast episode. But if you do have comments on this one, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 220. So thank you very much. Before I go, I want to remind you of the resource of the week, which was Short Pixel, which you can get at resourcefuldesigner.com/shortpixel. It is a great resource, a great plugin for WordPress. And even if you're not using WordPress, you can still use it. I saw on their website, it works great with WordPress, but you can also use it for non-WordPress sites. And it is an amazing resource for optimizing, especially batch optimizing lots and lots of photos to make them as small as possible, but still be crystal clear to help optimize your website. So be sure to check that out. And if you're interested in becoming a member of the Resourceful Designer community and be part of a great group of peers, of mentors, accountability partners, just friends, then visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community. Until next time, I am Mark DeCote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business and hoping that you're not a penguin. But I already know that because you listen to this podcast, you want to be different than all the other designers out there. Stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.